my best friend of 2 years, publicly proposed to me, but we were never even dating. Now he's accusing me of leading him on, and our friendship is falling apart. My best friend of 2 years seems to think we're in a relationship and decided to publicly propose to me. I have no idea what to do. Frankly, I'm still in shock that this happened, so this might be all over the place. Bear with me. All fake names, etc., etc. Jordan and I met in university 2 years ago. We both started at the same time, and because of our ages, we were both considered mature students. So we quickly became firm friends as we shared a dorm, and we'd joke around together about us being old enough to be considered mature in our early 20s. We weren't on the same course, but given we lived together, we would hang out pretty much all the time whenever we didn't have a lecture. We joined a bunch of societies together, went drinking every weekend together, etc., etc. It was a pretty sweet gig because it meant we were at least never alone. Obviously, we made other friends, both alone and together, but we were always each other's number one at the end of the day. At the moment, we're on spring holidays for Easter. And while we haven't hung out constantly, we decided to make plans to visit each other's hometowns because we're from very starkly different places. Today, we went to mine. Mine is a big city central. And this morning, we went there and were wandering down the streets, doing some sightseeing, because he's never been. There's typically a lot of street sellers here, trying to sell you everything from hot dogs to fluffy Pokemon hats. I decided I wanted to get a caricature done. I've never had one, and I thought it would be funny to get and hang over my bed when we got back for term. I asked Jordan if he wanted to get in, and he refused. No worries, so I sat down to get it done. They don't take very long, 5-10-ish minutes, so I looked straight forward at the artist the entire time. He finished the caricature, I loved it. So obviously I turned to show it properly to Jordan. And then when I turn though, I literally don't even know what to say. He's down on one knee holding up a ring box. I don't even really know what he said. If he did the whole proposal speech thing, because I was so confused. I was barely paying attention. Remember again, this is a super busy tourist city, so this has drawn a mini crowd now, coming over to cheer us on. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. To be honest, I thought this was some kind of odd prank type thing. We never have been prankster types or whatever, but I couldn't come up with a reasonable explanation. So I just laughed and laughed and laughed, until I looked at Jordan and he looked genuinely heartbroken. So obviously I asked him something along the lines of, "You're not being serious?" This is the only thing I remember him saying. He shut the box, stood up, shrugged, and said, "I guess not anymore," and walked off. This left me standing pretty awkwardly in this gathered crowd of people, a lot of who were giving me dirty looks, which made me incredibly uncomfortable. The plan was to meet back up a hotel that we had booked rooms next door to one another. So I figure that's where he's going and head back that way. But he's not there. So I wait, and he still doesn't return. I text him out of concern. This was at 1:15 p.m. It's currently 6:20 p.m. as I'm writing this, just asking if he's okay. He responds with a long message back, which I would post because it's an odd read, but I won't out of respect for his privacy, in which he basically accuses me of leading him on, asking why I didn't break up with him sooner, saying I had publicly humiliated him and that he thought I loved him the same way, and that he felt our relationship was strong enough to consider taking the next step. Now, this is completely out of left field. I literally have got no idea where in the world he's got this idea from. The closest we've ever physically been is a hug, hello, and goodbye. I've never even jokingly flirted with him. For exactly this reason, I've had too many friendships collapse because they can't tell the difference between serious, interesting, and joking banter in friendships, so I've been extra careful to not. We've never kissed, never been on a date, never had sex. I do not find him physically attractive, and I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with him. I don't understand where on earth he's got this idea that we are. This isn't something he's ever brought up before this, and I'm genuinely bewildered. He hasn't returned to the hotel yet. I periodically knock to check, and I've been listening out for him walking up the hallway or anything. Nothing. I haven't responded to his long paragraph because, honestly, I don't know how to. I'm just so stunned and taken aback that I genuinely have no idea where to go from here or what to do. I haven't told anyone I know in person yet, mostly because I don't want to bring this up to people who know Jordan. So here I am, turning to strangers on Reddit instead. What in the world do I do? Update 1. Hey Reddit, I appreciate all the responses and support I got from my original post. I wasn't expecting so many of you to come through with advice or to resonate with the situation. I'm still trying to process what happened, and honestly, it's been rough. So here's an update. Things have taken a turn, and I'm not sure it's for the better. First off, Jordan did come back to the hotel that night. It was late, like well after midnight. I didn't hear him come in, but I saw the light under his door. I couldn't sleep, so after staring at the ceiling for hours, I decided to send him a message asking if we could talk in the morning before we head back to uni. Surprisingly, he responded immediately and said he was too tired to talk but would catch me in the morning. Morning comes and it's weird. We sit across from each other in the little breakfast area of the hotel, and the tension is thick. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. Jordan looks exhausted and doesn't make eye contact. I ask him what happened, like how we got here, because, honestly, I still don't understand. I wasn't expecting him to get emotional, but he did. He started tearing up and telling me that he's been in love with me for over a year and thought that I felt the same way. He even mentioned specific moments, like when I helped him study for his exams, or when we binge-watched that entire season of Stranger Things together, where he thought I was giving him signals. He said he thought this trip was the perfect time to propose because he wanted to lock things down before we finished uni and went our separate ways. I was floored. How could he have read so much into these moments? I told him I never meant for any of that to come across as romantic. We're friends, and that's what friends do for each other. But he wasn't having it. He said no one does that much for a friend unless they're secretly in love with them. I was baffled. It didn't matter how many times I tried to explain that I never saw him as more than a friend. He just kept insisting I was in denial or too scared to admit it. Eventually, he said something that really got to me. He said, "If you didn't want me to think we were together, why didn't you stop spending so much time with me?" That's when I realized maybe we've been living in two different realities. I saw our friendship as close, but nothing more. He saw it as something that was clearly heading toward a romantic relationship. I told him again, as clearly as I could, that I wasn't in love with him and never have been. That's when things took another unexpected turn. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I don't believe you." I was like, "What? What do you mean?" He just shrugged and said he thought I was lying because I was scared of ruining the friendship. I don't know what to say to that. It felt like no matter what I told him, he was committed to this narrative he had built in his head. We finished breakfast in silence, and I told him I needed some space to think about everything. He said he'd give me all the space I needed, but that he wasn't going to give up on us. Since then, I've been in this weird limbo. Jordan and I aren't really talking, which is killing me because, like I said, he was my best friend. I miss hanging out with him, but I don't know if we can go back to that after everything. I've also been doing a lot of thinking about how I could have missed this. Like, was I really so oblivious? Was I accidentally leading him on without realizing it? I'm back at uni now, but things are still awkward between us. He's been distant, and I can't shake the feeling that this isn't over yet. I feel like I've lost my best friend, and I don't know if we can fix this. I'll update if anything else happens, but for now, I'm just trying to figure out how to move forward. Thanks again for all the advice and support. It really helped me feel less alone in this. If anyone's been in a similar situation, I'd love to hear how you handled it because I'm at a loss right now. Update 2. Hey Reddit, it's been a week since my last update, and boy, things have only gotten stranger. I wasn't planning on updating this soon, but I need to get this off my chest because I honestly don't know what's going on anymore. After our awkward breakfast conversation, I gave Jordan the space he asked for, hoping things would cool down. I was really trying to process everything and figure out if we could salvage our friendship. But then something happened that threw me for a loop. A few days ago, I started getting weird messages from some of our mutual friends. At first, it was subtle, just people asking me how things were with Jordan or if we had worked things out. I thought they were just being nosy, so I brushed it off. But then the questions got more specific. One friend straight up asked me when Jordan and I were planning to announce our relationship publicly. I was like, what? I told them we weren't dating and had no plans to start, but they seemed confused and said Jordan had told them something different. Now, at this point, I'm freaking out. I immediately messaged Jordan asking what the hell he's been telling people. He took a while to respond, but finally said something like, I just told them the truth, that we're figuring things out. I was furious. I told him there was nothing to figure out because we were never in a relationship and he needed to stop spreading these lies. His response? I'm just giving you time to come around. I feel like I'm losing my mind. How can he still think we're in some kind of relationship when I've made it clear we're not? It's like he's living in a completely different reality. I told him we needed to meet in person to talk about this because I couldn't deal with the mixed messages anymore. So, we met up yesterday. I was prepared to be firm, to make it crystal clear that we are not and never will be in a romantic relationship. But when we met, Jordan was different. He seemed calmer, more resigned, almost like he had already accepted whatever was going to happen. I told him again, very clearly, that I wasn't in love with him and that we needed to stop whatever this was before it got worse. He just nodded and said, I know. At first, I was relieved. I thought he had finally accepted it and we could start to rebuild our friendship. But then he dropped another bombshell. Jordan told me that he had been seeing someone else, another girl from our uni, for the past few months. I was floored. This whole time he was in a relationship? He told me they hadn't made it official yet because he was waiting for me to make up my mind. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked him why he hadn't mentioned this before, especially during the proposal and all the drama that followed. His response? I wanted to see if you'd fight for me. I don't even know what to say to that. It feels like this whole situation was some kind of twisted test to see if I would confess feelings I never had. I feel betrayed and manipulated. I asked him about the other girl, and he was vague, saying they were taking things slow, but that she knew about me. I don't know how much of that I believe at this point. I ended the conversation by telling him we needed a break from each other. I can't keep playing these mind games, and I don't know if we can ever go back to the way things were. I'm honestly heartbroken, not because I lost a potential relationship, but because I lost my best friend to whatever this twisted situation is. I don't know what's going to happen next, but for now, I need to focus on myself and try to move on. Update 3. I wasn't sure if I'd update again, but something happened that I didn't see coming. I think this might be the final chapter in this whole mess. After I told Jordan we needed a break, I've been doing my best to focus on other things, school, friends, hobbies, anything to take my mind off the drama. I thought I was doing okay, but then I got a message that flipped everything upside down. It was from the girl Jordan had mentioned, the one he said he was taking things slow with. So, I get this message from her. Let's call her Emily. And at first, I'm just confused. I've only met Emily once or twice in passing, and we've never had a real conversation, so I was surprised she even had my number. Her message was polite but direct. She said something like, Hey, I know you and Jordan are really close, and I just wanted to check in on a few things. Could we meet up? My heart sank immediately because I had no idea what this was going to be about, but I agreed to meet her for coffee the next day. When we sat down, I could tell she was nervous. She kept fidgeting with her phone and looking around like she wasn't sure how to start. Finally, she just came out with it and asked, Are you and Jordan dating? I almost spit out my coffee. I told her absolutely not, and that I had no idea why Jordan would give anyone that impression. She looked visibly relieved, but also confused. So I asked her why she thought we were dating. That's when she told me her side of the story, and everything started to unravel. Apparently, Jordan had been telling Emily that he and I were in a complicated relationship. He told her that we had been best friends for years and were slowly transitioning into a romantic relationship, but that I was hesitant to commit. According to him, I had trust issues and didn't want to rush things, so he was giving me time to figure things out before he made any serious moves with Emily. He even showed her text messages between us that he claimed were proof that I was secretly in love with him, but just scared to admit it. I was absolutely horrified. I asked her what kind of messages he had shown her, and that's when she pulled out her phone. Jordan had sent her screenshots of our conversations, but when I looked closer, I realized something was off. The texts looked edited, like he had cropped certain parts of our chats to make it seem like I was flirting with him. In reality, those conversations were completely platonic, but he had manipulated them to fit the narrative he was feeding Emily. I was speechless. I told Emily the truth, that Jordan and I had never been in a relationship, that I had rejected his proposal, and that I had no romantic feelings for him whatsoever. I also explained how he had been acting since the proposal, including the weird comments and how he'd been telling our mutual friends that we were working things out. Emily looked devastated. She told me that she and Jordan had been casually seeing each other for a couple of months, but now she wasn't sure if anything he had said was true. After talking for a while, we both realized that Jordan had been playing us against each other. He had been trying to keep me as his backup plan, while stringing Emily along in case things didn't work out with me. It was like he was living in some fantasy where he could have us both competing for him, even though I had made it clear multiple times that I wasn't interested. Emily thanked me for being honest, and we ended the conversation on good terms. She told me she was going to confront Jordan about everything and that she wasn't sure she could trust him anymore. I felt awful for her because she seemed like a genuinely nice person who had been completely blindsided by all of this. That night, I got a long text from Jordan. It was a weird mix of an apology and more manipulation. He said he was sorry for putting me in a difficult position, but that he had only acted the way he did because he was so in love with me and didn't know how to handle his feelings. He also said that he didn't mean to hurt Emily, but he couldn't give up on us until he knew for sure there was no chance. At this point, I was done. I didn't even respond to his message. Instead, I blocked him on everything: social media, phone, all of it. I'm not going to lie, it was painful to do. For 2 years, this guy had been my best friend, and now I was cutting him out of my life completely. But after everything that had happened, I didn't see any other choice. He had crossed so many lines that I didn't think we could ever go back to being friends. I also heard from Emily a couple of days later. She told me that she confronted Jordan, and he admitted to most of what we had talked about. He tried to apologize to her too, but she wasn't having it. She ended things with him and said she felt like she had dodged a bullet. I couldn't agree more. Now that it's all over, I'm left feeling a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, I'm relieved that the truth finally came out and that I'm no longer stuck in this weird situation. On the other hand, I'm heartbroken that I lost a friend in the process. I've been reflecting a lot on how this all happened and whether there were any red flags I missed along the way. In hindsight, there were probably a few, like the way Jordan would get jealous when I spent time with other people, or how he would sometimes make weird comments about us being perfect for each other. But I always brushed it off because I trusted him and never imagined he would take things this far. I'm moving forward, though. I've reconnected with some other friends who I had unintentionally distanced myself from because I was spending so much time with Jordan. It's been nice to catch up with them and focus on other relationships that aren't so complicated. I'm also trying to let go of the guilt I've been feeling. A lot of you in the comments reassured me that this wasn't my fault, and I'm finally starting to believe that. Jordan made his own choices, and I can't control how someone else interprets my actions or feelings. So, yeah, that's where things stand now. I'm healing, learning, and trying to move on from what has been one of the weirdest and most stressful situations I've ever been in. If there's one thing I've taken away from all of this, it's the importance of clear communication and boundaries in friendships. I'll definitely be more mindful of that going forward. Thank you to everyone who followed along and offered advice and support. I never expected this post to blow up the way it did, but I'm grateful for the sense of community I found here. It helped me navigate a really confusing time, and I appreciate all of you. Stay safe out there, Reddit.